Coming up next, a free spirit on a grand adventure.
Nothing made sense. I spoke to him and he was fine.
But then Jackson Stacker was found dead.
I mean, being stabbed to death and your body led to rot under a tree in a cow paddock. I straight away thought it was murder.
Has Byron Bay's backpacker curse
You got to lock in the known facts.
struck again?
What are you suggesting then? That this was some sort of revenge, retribution?
Everything was so violent, horrific.
That's next on 60 Minutes. It might not be the lifestyle for everyone, but 25-year-old Jackson Stacker loved his happy-go-lucky existence. He lived in the moment, thriving on not knowing what each day would bring. Home was a van, and wherever he parked it was where he slept. Without a care, Jackson was roaming around Byron Bay in July 2021 when one night he disappeared. A month later, he was found dead. Police said it was likely he'd suicided, but his distraught family believes something far more sinister happened. And that's because his skull was discovered 13 metres from his body and there was a 30-centimetre hunting knife embedded in his chest. A rave or doof in the bush. It's high energy and high fun. A celebration of free spirits, dancing and living to the same beat. But tragedy is not far away. One of these revellers will soon die. In circumstances so mysterious, the manner and cause of death will have to be determined by a coroner. I'd imagine this is a bit of a sacred place for you. What is it like to come back?
It's quite sad. It's quite emotional.
This lonely place, 2 hours from the doof party, is where 25-year-old Jackson Stacker, once so full of life, lost his on July 23rd, 2021. His mother, Sandy McFarlane, is making a heart-wrenching return.
It's where the mystery starts and, where his life stopped.
Jackson's badly decomposed body was found under this tree, 120 metres from this Pacific Highway rest stop and 25 minutes north of Byron Bay. The scene that awaited police was distressing. Jackson had a 30-centimetre hunting knife protruding from his chest. His skull had been separated from his body and was found 13 metres away.
I was so confused. What do you mean it's our son?
It's been a heartbreaking and confounding 3 years for Sandy and Jackson's dad, Ian. They're on a mission to find out why their son died so violently, questioning the police investigation, all the while grieving the loss of their beautiful boy.
People go through this every day, don't they? And until you have it happen to you, you totally have a different perspective for the rest of your life on these things, so...
Well, the rest of your life has changed.
Yeah, that's
in
it.
that moment.
It's, you see the world differently. Every news story, everything that happens, you have a totally different perspective on it, and it's all due to the pain that you're suffering by losing a child.
Ian and Sandy are critical of police for initially suspecting Jackson had taken his own life, despite the huge hunting knife in his chest. On further investigation, police did reconsider his death as suspicious, but Ian and Sandy fear the suicide theory coloured the police approach, as did the way Jackson was profiled.
Their assessment of him was that he was a homeless, alcoholic, drug user that they've just found in the paddock. All right, that assessment was made pretty quickly. He was none of those things, and he was undervalued as a human being because of how he was found. And I think the feeling was, we'll just tick this off as a suicide. Just a knife in the chest, I think, suggests that perhaps it wasn't a suicide.
Nothing made sense. I spoke to him the last day he was alive and he was fine.
Jackson Stacker grew up in Melbourne and, like many in their 20s, just wanted to travel.
It was simple if I was to be rubbish again.
In early 2021, taking on the east coast of Australia in his van, he landed in Byron Bay, seemingly the perfect place in his soul-searching journey.
I just remember someone really looking forward to just going off on an adventure, which is what it was meant to be.
And seeking a different type of lifestyle, right?
Yeah. He just saw the world a bit differently. He was not materialistic, although he wasted money on some crazy jackets sometimes. It's hard to understand what he was doing there, but he was off on this mission, and I felt great, go and have a ball.
Jackson certainly looked like he was. A month before his death, he sent his mum this reassurance.
You know, his message to me was, "Mum, I'm so great. I've never been happier. You know, I'm hanging out with a lot of really beautiful, intelligent people." He was great, fantastic, no problem.
Life was blissful, with many hours spent with fellow travellers at Byron's main beach.
They were just having a good time, having a beer and just chilling out, or sitting on their roofs and just, you know, listening, playing music and surfing, watching the sunset.
But in the last 4 weeks of his life, something had changed.
He wasn't always happy here, was he? Like, there are moments that have been recounted where he got really upset.
I think he was feeling used by certain people that were borrowing his van.
Friends say Jackson's emotional ups and downs came with drug taking, LSD and marijuana. But his parents fear he was running with the wrong crowd, criminals and drug users who make up part of the vast homeless community sleeping rough around Byron. And they believe it's possible someone from that circle had something to do with Jackson's death.
Just came across to us that there's other possibilities of what could have happened here.
So what could that something else be?
We think that perhaps he got involved with, at this doof, someone in the drug trade that left some stuff in his van. You know, Jackson left that doof prematurely and left behind a few people that he transported there. Just the way that his van was found, it was totally trashed. It was like it had been strip searched.
Ian and Sandy believe Jackson's ransacked van is evidence of foul play, not suicide. It was found at the Sleepy Hollow rest stop, just 120 metres away from where Jackson's body would be discovered.
So what are you suggesting then? That this was some sort of revenge, retribution?
No, we think there's been an altercation between him and these people, and I don't know what the altercation was or how it could possibly end up in him in a field with a knife in his chest.
Everything was so violent. Like, the van is not just messy, it's destroyed. They've taken cushion covers off the cushions that made up the bed. They've broken the foam.
But the police say there's no evidence of actual violence within the van.
No.
We don't think it was violence in the van, but we think someone's been in there looking for something.
Back at Sleepy Hollow, Sandy steps out what could have led Jackson from the safety of the van to the scene of his death.
If it was homicide, how do you believe he got there? What happened?
I believe he would have been chased there.
So it jumped the fence, went through the creek, running away.
If he was in a panic, you know, like, he wouldn't like a confrontation. And I think that he was running.
Adding to this mystery is Jackson's missing phone. Despite multiple searches of the paddock where he died, it's never been found. So imagine our shock when we stumbled across a half-buried phone within eyesight of where Jackson's body was discovered. Traipsing through wet undergrowth in the Byron Bay hinterland, seeking answers to the unexplained stabbing death of Jackson Stacker, we did not expect to become part of the story. But we've had to call in Byron Police after our producer stumbled across a semi-buried phone in the vicinity of where Jackson's body was found with a knife in his chest. It's an incredible find given this area has been scoured multiple times by police. More so, it's incredibly significant to Jackson's parents, Sandy and Ian.
The phone is, to us, a pretty important piece of information.
While we don't yet know if this is Jackson's phone, his parents believe his phone is a key piece of this puzzle. They say Jackson was tethered to his Samsung, yet it was not found on him. Intriguingly, a week after he died in 2021, it rebooted 200 kilometres away near Grafton. For the next 4 days, it connected with various cell towers before returning to the Byron area where it stopped pinging on August 2nd. For Ian and Sandy, this means someone had taken Jackson's phone. Evidence to them he was not alone when he died, which they say suggests his death was not suicide.
If it was with him, then someone else was there because the phone moved. If it wasn't with him, then who took it?
It does your head in, doesn't it?
It does your head in, yes.
But there is another view. We've asked former homicide detective Gary Jubilant to help decipher the case. When contemplating the question of whether Jackson took his own life or not, the common response seems to be, but he wouldn't have done it there in the open and he wouldn't have done it with a knife.
Yeah,
Do you understand that response?
I do understand the response, especially people close to him, people that know him. But what I've learnt through my career in homicide was that you're trying to put rational thoughts to an irrational action.
In their investigation, police found that near the end of his life, Jackson was suffering mood swings and displayed erratic behaviour. According to his friends at the time, Jackson was smoking marijuana and taking LSD, which was having a devastating emotional impact. Mentally unstable, acting strange, wanted to cut himself, crying uncontrollably, is how some friends described Jackson in the last weeks of his life.
How much store do you put by the people who say he was suicidal, that say that he talked about wanting to kill himself?
Not that much, because Jackson had no filter. He would tell me if that was something that he was feeling. He'd never actually ever mentioned suicide to me.
And he'd spoken people out of, suicide. He talked them out of it, and he didn't see it as a good option.
Jackson had been hospitalised in the past, treated for drug-fuelled psychosis after bad reactions to mind-altering substances.
I don't think it's uncommon for people to get to a sad state. I think it's pretty uncommon for them to whack a knife in their chest, though, when they're in that state. And again, keep getting back to it doesn't make sense.
But do you accept that if you're taking LSD, that what happens next can be unpredictable?
Yeah, absolutely, I can.
And not make sense.
Yeah, I can.
But while Jackson's fragile frame of mind in the days before he died may be suggestive of suicide, his actions were not. He had told family and friends he was heading to Queensland and collected his tools to take with him. While it's unknown where he spent the night before his death, phone records showed his internet use was typical. They also revealed the very last time he used his phone, to check the clock app at 7:40 a.m. on Friday the 23rd of July, the day it's believed he died.
Like his YouTube was absolutely normal to what he did any other night. If there was, something erratic going on there, you could accept it a bit more, but...
if he'd left a note, we would find solace in that.
It was very horrific for me. I think that's one of the worst ways I think that you can go. I mean, being stabbed to death and your body led to rot under a tree in a cow paddock by the side of a highway. It's pretty horrific. I straight away thought it was murder. That was first thought my mind went to.
Ishtar Kenny knows the area. She was born and bred in Byron. She believes it's conceivable that her cousin Jackson fell victim to its seedy underbelly.
I mean, I've heard of different things going on in Byron in the last few years where, you know, other young people have been very afraid because they've been involved in something they didn't realise what it was, and then they've been threatened or stuff like that. So I know it can happen. I know it can happen in that area as well.
This is a pretty confronting place to come, isn't it?
Yeah, you can see how it'd be difficult navigating your way through here.
Former homicide detective Gary Jubilan and I are retracing Jackson's presumed last steps. The troubling question for his parents is, if he took his own life, why would he stab himself? Statistically, one of the rarest ways to suicide. A question, amongst many, they fear police have not sufficiently investigated.
So when you look at the report, when you look at this place, do you think police approached it with the right mindset, right level of suspicion, and carried out their investigation thoroughly?
I've got to say yes, Tara. Looking at the brief of evidence being presented by the police on this occasion, it was a thorough brief of evidence.
But Sandy and Ian's fear things were not done properly was acutely realised when Sandy made an incredible discovery while visiting the scene where Jackson died.
I actually found a tooth that turned out, after forensically tested, was my son's tooth.
Can you believe that?
No.
What are the chances?
Yeah. There was a lot of emotion about that. It was, this is my son, this is a part of him that still remains here at that site. And then I was angry. Why is this at the site? Why was it not found? Why, you know, what else is missing of my son's body?
Anyone would be angry. Despite this area being searched by police multiple times, Sandy's extraordinary find led to another line search a year after Jackson's death, which uncovered 3 of his finger bones. No wonder Sandy and Ian feel police have done a half-hearted job. But Gary Jubilan is more forgiving.
The first thing I want to have done is to make sure the crime scene's properly examined. I think that's what they have done.
Even though Mum finds Jackson's tooth months later?
Yeah, I don't want to be overly critical because we're talking a tooth in bushland like this. Things do get missed. It's not an ideal situation.
But then also 3 finger bones were then found subsequently to that discovery.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't look great.
It doesn't look great, and I think the police would be feeling bad about that. And I've been involved in numerous searches for remains, and it is very difficult, and things can get missed.
Sandy also describes the scene as a violent one, that Jackson's scalp was found 13 metres away from the rest of his body. Is that something that should be of concern, raises flags?
It is horrific when you think the skull is 13 metres from the skeletal remains and other body parts. Unfortunately, that's nature at work. There's a lot of animals around here, and I don't find it unusual.
On his evaluation of the case, Gary says police could find no evidence Jackson died at the hand of someone else. But nor is there certainty Jackson's death was self-inflicted. It will be up to the coroner, who is yet to determine Jackson's manner and cause of death, to announce her findings, which are expected sometime in the coming weeks. Can you imagine any family being completely happy with an investigation of this type?
Having worked homicide as long as I did, it's such a difficult area. There's a lot of emotions attached to it. It's not something that you can look at clinically and separate emotion. There is emotion involved. But any suspicious death should be treated as a homicide until you can prove otherwise. And looking at the steps that the police have taken during the course of this investigation, I think from a very early stage, they were looking at it as a potential homicide.
It may be 3 years since the death of Jackson, But underlying their day-to-day lives, Ian and Sandy continue to hunt for truth and certainty. Whether it was suicide or murder, it's the not knowing that torments these grieving parents.
What would he want? What would Jackson want? That is what I ask myself every day. What would he want? He would want us to be happy. And we'd like to find his truth, because that will make us happy.
If this story has raised issues and you need to speak with someone, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.